All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to season 2, episode 18 of Living in the Texas Hill Country. Today we have Dr. Megan Clayton on with us. I know you were on last season. Did we have you on twice? I realize you do a lot of programs, and me asking you how many times you've been on,
Not
it's
sure.
kind of a tough. I think you've been on at least once, maybe twice, but I'm also might be getting like cup chat
I
crisscrossed.
think I am looking at it. I think you've been on twice, and actually, fun fact, you were our first guest.
Oh, that's exciting. I don't
Yes,
remember
and then
that.
a little also fun fact that we'll talk more on later, but this will be our last live weekly episode. So you are our first guest, now you're our last. We're not ending
Great.
the it's just kind of the end of the season. And I haven't really posted anything about it yet, but there will be a post go out. But so if you're watching and you're like, what? We'll
Pivoting,
catch up.
pivoting.
Pivot. New idea.
Yeah, new idea. Changing
New
things up.
idea. We're not
Um,
ending it, we're making it better.
yes, but for y'all who don't know, Megan is she is based out of, I guess technically, are you District 10 and 12, so like Hill Country, South
A little bit of
Texas?
12, a little bit of 10, a little bit
Okay.
west. Yes.
Okay. But she is a range specialist. She is actually my next door neighbor here at the Uvalde Research and Extension Center. She's a
That's
great
right.
neighbor. She's very
Yep.
quiet because she's
Very
never in the
quiet.
office. She likes to work from home, but when she does come to the office, it's a very, very nice treat. But so Megan actually, so we're going to talk about some like site visit prep, and this is something that in extension a lot of the time we get asked to come out and like emails, phone calls are great, but like the site visit itself is, I would say, like arguably probably one of the most important things, because that's where you really get from the county agent perspective and the specialist perspective, that's really where you get a lot of the information from. So we figured, why not help y'all prep for having either a specialist or a county agent come out to your property, and sort of what idea wise what you need to have available so you can make that visit as productive as humanly possible. Because Megan, I know Megan gets to do a lot more site visits
I don't
than I.
know. The agents really do the site
Yes,
visits. I
this is
think I
true.
could do that site visiting 24/7. So I really don't. I do it more distance. And that would probably be my first thing. And I guess I'm just very protective of our agents' time. And Carly can chime in here, but they're pulled in a lot of different directions. So the first thing is that I would make sure an actual site visit is necessary. For example, if someone wanted to ask Carly about a plant, well, they could send a picture to her and she could identify that from a distance without setting foot on the place, and even give you management information behind that. So my first thing I think would make sure that that's necessary, because we can do a whole lot by visiting in the office or providing supplemental resources. But of course, sometimes a site visit in person is just needed.
I feel like we need to like make a little flow chart of like, it's like that, like yes or no. It's like, do you need a site visit? Answer like question, and yes, you go further, and no, you're like, virtual or phone call or whatever is perfectly fine. But yes, yeah, sometimes simple like plant ID, wildlife ID. I know I've gotten pictures of like porcupines, on a, stripping tree bark. They're like, what is this?
Yes,
That's,
you
if
got
y'all,
that.
I was gonna say, if y'all don't know what that looks like, you can look it up. It's quite, I think they're the only ones that really do it. I think if deer do it, it's
Not up that high.
not quite up that high. And if they are stripping bark, you've got some serious issues going on.
Yes, for sure. For
But
sure.
yeah, so definitely, yeah, first deciding if you actually need that. But I guess on that first initial, I'll say, point of contact, when you are reaching out to an agent, to a specialist, what should you include, or what should you sort of have in front of you on that first initial?
Oh my goodness. Well, even
And
before, when you're
it's going to
requesting,
vary. Yeah, it's going to
it will
vary
vary.
depending.
You have got to know your goals for your property. It's very hard to advise people. We are so excited to tell people about research knowledge that we know, or different experiences with other similar properties that we can tell you success stories, but that may not apply to you if your goals are different than those properties. And so solidifying the goals, thinking about who all is involved in the management or ownership of this property, and making sure all of you have had that conversation about what are we going to do with this land, or is it multiple different opportunities that you're looking at for the same piece of property. I think everyone needs like some short-term objectives, like, okay, we want to manage for a white-tailed deer, let's say, on this piece of property. But in the short term, we're thinking like, what habitat adaptions of the plants could we do? Is there supplemental feed that's necessary? There's some short-term things that might lead you towards your ultimate goal for improving that for white-tailed deer. It'll be very important to know, first of all, that that is your goal. And it may sound very simple, but I get calls all the time about people asking, should I get rid of these trees? They're just really abundant. And it's like, well,
It depends.
it depends on your goals, because what I might tell you may be different than your neighbor if y'all have differing goals and different ways that you would utilize those plants, or other plants that might be able to replace those plants when you take them out. So goals is my number one thing. When you show up to a place, it's always nice when someone even has written goals that they've really thought through. This is what they want to do. And then it's much easier to give advice that is helpful. So Carly could go out there, for instance, without any goals in mind and tell you a lot of very helpful things. But they would be more meaningful for you if she was speaking directly to your intentions for the land.
And I definitely think from the wildlife perspective is, if you are managing for a wildlife species, try to narrow it down a little bit would be.
Or if you're managing
ideal.
for biodiversity, you just want
Yes.
as many diverse plants to support that system as possible. That could certainly be your goal. You could manage for pollinators. That could be your goal. But just having an idea of what you want to do with the property, and making sure that everyone else involved in the property is also on
great.
board, or how they may have some competing alternatives, and we may be able to make that work very easily. But it's important to know.
So I guess, so goals, is there anything else that reaching out, when people reach out, they should sort of have at hand? I know for me, it's some, I'll say basic location or property.
Yeah, if you've got a
information.
map, or even like kind of a rough sketch on a Google Earth, even that would be fantastic. We could run that information, and I know Carly has, in Web Soil Survey or a rangeland analysis platform, and get some additional information to share with you on our visit, why you might be seeing certain plant communities in different areas on your place. The other thing is, if you have any past management records, that would be super helpful, so that we kind of know what's been done with the land. Any previous maps maybe that we kind of show cover type. Sometimes we can pull that off of internet resources where it can go back in time. But a lot of times landowners have really fascinating things that have been passed down from the generations, and that's fun to look at if you have it.
Okay, so I mean, is there anything else with that?
Along with preparation. So I would say we're probably about to the point to where we're going to show up. And these are going to be a little bit more like physical checklist things you might think through. Of course, if you're not going to be at the gate, making sure that they have the gate code is very helpful, because sometimes when we go out on visits, we don't have good cell phone reception, or something might happen where we don't catch each other. So it's nice that they could let themselves in, or let them know that you'll be leaving the gate open, and just to shut it, when they come through. The other thing is, I know my husband was a county extension agent for a very short period in Virginia, and he's talked about dogs, and it made me laugh. And I'm just going to admit that I harassed him about it, but he said a lot of the places that he went to had a lot of guard dogs that would come up to the truck, and he was very unsure if they were nice or not. In fact, he used to carry dog biscuits around, in
Oh,
his
He's like
truck.
a FedEx man, like a FedEx or
He
UPS
was
guy.
trying
Like,
to befriend them. And usually people yell like, oh, they're friendly or they won't hurt you or something. But you never know when you show up in a different vehicle what they might think. And so if you have the ability to pin your dogs up just for a little bit for the visit, that might be respectful to that person. And maybe that agent isn't really fond of dogs. You never know the history there. So that's one thing I think I would caution people. And then a lot of times folks have a UTV or a ranch truck that they like to drive around in instead of the one that we show up in. And that's completely fine. In fact, it's enjoyable for me not to have to drive. But be sure that you've got plenty of gas in it. The tires are doing well because you do want to spend time with us, but you probably don't want us to be around for hours while we walk back from a location. And I've
Well,
heard some pretty good stories there.
right. And it's one of those things you do your best to plan, but you want to hear God laugh, you tell him your plans and there you go. So you
Absolutely.
just do your best to prep for that. But I guess speaking of hours, spending hours on end is, and again, I realize it will very much depend on what you're going out to visit, the size of the property.
Yep.
But on average, how much time should people sort of block out, do you think, for a realistic site visit?
Sure. If you're needing that person to come out and see for themselves that property, be sure you know what stops you want to make for them to get the best impact quickly. I would plan for an hour to an hour and a half for the visit. And hopefully that person can take pictures and gain enough information from you to feel like they have a good idea. And if they can't provide all of the answers right then, certainly I know our county agents, they're willing to go back and look those up for you and find you more resources that are going to be very pointed for your questions. So sending those questions ahead of time might help speed some of that up. But again, we're already to the point where we're at the location. And so hopefully you've already thought through if you actually need a physical visit or not. If you plan to have an extended stay, say beyond an hour and a half, be sure to let them know and to let them know why, because they're going to need to plan that time into their schedule because they may actually be doing several site visits while they're out of the office that same day.
That is a very valid point. Yeah. So, oh gosh, I'm trying to think. So you're there at the site, you've done your site visits. Is there anything in regards to like, I'll say planning, I'd say planning the route, but in regards to like anything they need to think about of like schedule wise, any constraints that they might need to think about, like they should visit site, one site first versus another. Is there any benefit?
It's just so dependent on the situation and the questions that you're having. Sometimes it's just one place that you need to go down and look at. Say you have a question about eroding soil on your riparian zone. You could go to the location where it's the worst and explain to them how that used to look, or if you have pictures of how it used to look, the different plant cover types that could be helpful. So your visit may only be 15 or 20 minutes. That's all they really need. But again, a lot of times the ones that are very short, they could have possibly been taken care of with some photographs via email or coming by the office. Just being cognizant of that agent's time and travel funds. The other thing I would say is I mentioned having your vehicle in order, however you want to transport around. Be aware that we do have some pests out there right now. Mealybug, pasture mealybug is a concern. These agents have definitely been on multiple properties. And so if you don't want them to drive around your entire property and possibly transmit some bugs that they got from another place, it'd be a good idea if you took the leadership to driving them around or touring them around.
That is a very valid point. That's something in the wildlife we don't, at least where I'm at, where we cover, that's not something I think about too much.
But pasture mealybug, somebody said that's really a livestock problem, not a wildlife problem. I
Yeah.
would like to disagree because our
You're not wrong.
wildlife very much depend on grasses for structure. That's where our fawns are hidden from predators. Those grass seed are valuable seeds for not only our small birds, but also larger ones like wild turkey. They're going to utilize grasses in many different ways, maybe than our livestock would, but they're still incredibly important. And we are actively trying to figure out better solutions for pasture mealybug, but that was just one example of a pest. Someone could also bring in seeds, unwanted seeds from other pastures where they've been visiting. So just something to consider. I always think about that when I drive on someone's property. I try very hard to stay right on the roads
Yes.
because you would never want to leave anybody with an extra surprise. But if you're concerned, then be sure that you align something for touring them around.
Okay. So, and then once you're, once you're on site, that's sort of where, you'll ask your questions. Is there anything else? I guess, because you kind of gave the rundown of everything, sort of in that introductory email, phone call, or whatever. Is there anything for the actual, you're visiting the sites? Is there anything else that you should have, I'll say, prepped when they're actually physically there? I mean, I guess having additional questions on hand.
Yeah, write down your questions. If you're like me, even when I go to the doctor, I'll write down questions because it's like, I'm going to ask them things and then I get in the room and it's just sort of fast and furious and I forget half of what I was going to ask. So having those written down is a great idea. Beyond that, our county extension agents and our specialists really enjoy getting to know landowners better, and a site visit is certainly one of those times that gives us that opportunity. We don't expect to be fed or offered drinks. We're usually in toting our own along with us. So nothing like that. Just make sure that you know what the purpose is for our visit. Make it a really productive time. And then, of course, we're going to look forward to seeing how things change on your land over time and kind of being on that journey with you.
Well, and I think also potentially like recording your conversation, because I know, like, especially at the doctor, like they're throwing a bunch of like jargony terms at you and you're like, yes. And you just like, you don't think to just ask what that means, but at least if you have like a recording of it or what was said, you can remind yourself, but you could potentially look up some stuff a little bit later. Luckily I feel like we definitely have our jargony terms. You at least sound out our jargony terms versus a doctor's office. They throw out some of those like really long phrases and I'm like, and how do you spell that? Because
yes, no kidding. Well, and that's one thing. You might take a pad of paper and a pen, make sure you're taking notes, and you could ask people how to spell things right then. Because you're right, there are a lot of concepts that you might be able to Google later. With AI technology, I'm sure it would pull up a lot of our publications even when you do that. I don't know. Recording makes me a little bit more careful about what I say. So maybe you would not be subjected to some of my horrible dry humor jokes, but
it wouldn't be caught in like permanently kept. You're like, yes, I said that, and they will be able to go back and listen to that over and over and over again.
Well, it would be like me nerding out because I saw a cool plant, and you may not want a recording of that, but definitely taking notes would be helpful. That way you can refer back to them later or even email them. I wrote down this. What were we referring to?
What were we talking about again?
It's also always nice to follow up with an email.
I was going to say that.
To say, this is my game plan. This is what I heard. Does that sound like
correct?
What we kind of decided on your visit or along the right lines?
Yes.
What about like the people that could go out? So we did talk about county extension agents would be one of my first calls if I was a landowner. But also we have other agencies that do free site visits and provide technical resource depending on what your goals are for your property.
Yeah, and so there's like NRCS, which is I always forget, what does the N stand for? I know it's Resource Conservation
Natural.
Man, I wanted to say is I never remember if it's natural or national because I always just call it NRCS.
It
and I
is
always talk about
national. It's the USDA. But yeah,
the-
Natural Resources Conservation Service. Every county has a resource specialist in that county that could come out and give technical guidance. And they're also the ones that hold the purse strings for the Farm Bill. And so they could help you work with FSA to get cost sharing on some practices if that's of interest. And Parks and Wildlife, of course,
Yes.
Texas Parks and Wildlife. They also have a biologist in every county. You can just type in, find my Parks and Wildlife biologist. And those folks will also come out and give you free technical guidance or help you put together a management plan for yourself or for tax valuation purposes. A lot of good contacts there, but our county agents are kind of jacks of all trades. So they get called out from everything from like a dying tree in the front yard to what, Carly? What's been some of the different experiences you've
yeah,
had?
surprises. Like you're like, oh, this is a new one.
Um,
She's
got
like,
some-
This is gonna be good.
I get,
Uh-huh.
well, I have one in mind that it's not my experience, so I'm not gonna share what agent it was, but but they got called out for some white spots on the base of a tree. And so he goes out there and he's looking at the spots and is like, oh, it's not really, it doesn't look like a fungus. It looks like it's gonna wipe off. There's a bird nest. There's
Oh
bird
my
poop.
goodness.
Right above where the white spots were. So but
So he
yeah,
felt like a genius that day.
he did. He was like, I've got an answer to your
Solved.
problem. But for me, I mean, I think probably true for most of us. We get anywhere from my tree is dying to my tree has holes in it to can you come look at my pond and just tell me if it's healthy to a very specific, I have 1,000 turtles in my pond. I did go to one of those.
Oh wow.
how big was the pond? 1,000 turtles? I feel like it's a lot of turtles.
I mean, I don't know if it was, I don't know how
Oh,
many
okay.
were actually in there, but there was a lot. There was a
Yeah,
lot of
I was
turtles
gonna
in
say,
there.
I act like I know a bunch about turtles, but I don't. I learned all that stuff in college, and that has since left my brain.
I just thought turtles were cute, so I went out there. I'm like, oh, cool, turtles. I'm like, oh, I actually have to know how to. So I learned a lot
I
that
actually
day.
should probably know some things about turtles.
That's funny.
But I think another thing is, get multiple opinions, because between NRCS and Texas Parks and Wildlife and the county extension agents, there is knowledge-wise a lot of overlap, interconnected
There is.
thoughts. I don't know what better way to say that.
We kind of have our own I hate to say specialties because y'all are the specialists, but I guess that is the right word. I mean, we most of us have a master's degree and it's in like mine's in sustainable agriculture. We don't use that here in Blanco County. So
Yeah.
there's different areas of expertise or just a special interest, I could say too. So whereas my background is kind of more in livestock, and then I was a vet tech for a long time, so I have like a lot of medical knowledge. My NRCS conservation person is really good with grasses and rangeland management and things like that. So there's a lot of times I'll actually call her like, hey, I've got this coming up. Can you come with me? And we'll
I was
kind
gonna
of
say that's the best of all worlds, right?
yeah, we
Get
go
them all
on a
there
lot of
the
site
same
visits
day.
together. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
then
there
they can
is-
bounce ideas off each other too, which is very
Yes.
helpful.
Yes,
Sure.
it's always nice to have a sounding board because you have a thought, but sometimes you're not always thinking of that one little like caveat to the rule or whatever. So it's definitely nice to have someone to, I hate to say call you out, but be like, well, don't forget about this. And you're like, oh. So yeah, sometimes having multiple people out at the same time can be definitely beneficial if you can align schedules.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna say, because yeah, you said every county has an NRCS agent, or do they kind of cover multiple
Well, they may
counties?
cover 2 counties, but
Okay.
every county has someone assigned to it
Oh,
Gotcha.
that
okay.
should be able to come out.
And I know biologist wise, I think now every county has a biologist. I know at one point it was like you do get one biologist per 2 or 3 counties, but
Oh,
I think it's
wow.
about, I think,
Ours is, I think he's either 2 or 3
2.
counties,
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know,
but we're so little, you know. So probably bigger counties have their own.
yeah, and I know with when they started charging for the MLD program,
Mm,
which is a deer program that they have, that's when that sort of started to
mm.
Wow.
that helped to fund some additional positions. But yeah, I feel like that's, I mean, it's kind of a very basic topic, but I feel like this is one of those topics that if you set yourself up really well on the front end, you're more effective on the
Definitely.
back end. Sort of
Yeah.
thing.
If they leave and you feel like you didn't get your questions answered, then you probably went about it wrong, honestly, because they're there to help you. We're a private land state. So they're going to provide you answers according to the amount of information that you can give them to back that up, make sure they're on the right track. So, and they can always give you examples of other places and how other places are doing things. But that may not be the right fit for you. We have a lot of different tools to get to the same end. So very important that you kind of know your boundaries and what you're looking for in your visit, and sharing that with them ahead of time can definitely make them feel more confident too before they come up.
Yes, because there's, I hate to say nothing worse, but it's really hard when you go to a site visit. And you kind of show up and you're like, okay, what do you want to show us? And you're like, I don't really
I don't
know.
know.
You
So-
tell me.
Yes, yeah.
You tell me what we need to do. Like,
Yes.
oh, I would love to if you want to gift me your property, but I probably would do things different than
Different,
they would.
exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
very helpful that we're given the right kind of information. And, you know, extension is very much about giving research-based information out. It's very important to us that we make sure that we know what the latest research says. And that's why I say sometimes you may not get all your answers all at that one visit, but I guarantee your county agent is going to go back and do some research for you to make sure that they're giving you the best available answer possible. And I think that's the strength of our extension service, is that we are there to help you do what you want to do with your property. And we are going to make sure that that's something that can be backed up.
Yep. And there's always a possibility that, you know, there may be a follow-up site visit potentially if, you know,
Yep.
you do some management practice or what have you, and, you know, you're looking, you're like, hey, I don't know if this went well or not, which pictures can be great.
Yeah.
That could be good, but, you know, potential follow-up site visit might be in order, might not, but.
Yeah. I should have said that. It's not really one or the other. You could send pictures ahead of time of the visit.
Yeah.
And that's helpful too, because they're
Oh,
kind of going to
yeah.
have in their mind what they're going to look like, or what it's going to look like when they get there. And it won't take that time for them to kind of wrap their head around what kind of area and
buffer.
what questions you have.
To buffer a little
Yeah.
bit as to like what process everything and what's happening. Yeah, that is a very valid point. And I guess and sometimes I have found that videos they take up a lot of formatting, especially when you send in emails, but videos can be really good because you can, it's a string of pictures is what it is. So sometimes you can catch something in a
Yeah.
frame or a certain angle that you wouldn't catch the same site at a different angle, if that makes
Yep.
any sense. You can pause it, you can rewind it.
Absolutely.
So sometimes even just a video, and maybe you like doing a dialogue and talking through like, this is what I'm seeing, this is my concern with this,
Yep.
could also be very beneficial. Like I said, sending it might be an issue. I guess a text, that's when, you know, text messages is great.
That's true. Yeah, I know videos are great. And I think too, that might get you an answer quicker than waiting for a day that the agent has free to come out for a site visit. So that might be a good step one before you have somebody out. But when they do come out, remember there's 5,000 plants in Texas. And I only know of one or two people who probably know 3,500 of them. So be really kind about that. And every time I'm on a site visit, people are like, what's this? What's that?
And I'm like,
What's this? That is a little bit overwhelming, especially for our newer agents that have not had a chance to learn all of the plants in their counties yet, but they will. And the more they get out, that's helping them too. So if you have particular question about certain ones, be sure to send them those plant pictures ahead of time. And then when they go out there, they can confirm that that was indeed the right plant that they were thinking it was. So
Yeah, I was gonna say,
be kind.
is Dr. Rector one of the people that you know that knows like 3,500 of the
He
plants?
is definitely. Dr. Baron Rector is my counterpart out of College Station. He has been an extension specialist for 40 something years, and he is a plant genius. He's like an encyclopedia. I wish I had his brain, but I am not. But I am very interested in learning, just like a lot of our agents are. And so getting out on the land is something that we all enjoy. And don't ever hesitate to ask questions. And if need be, ask us to come out.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, spent a lot of time on a very, like I said, a very basic topic, but a very,
Yeah,
very
it was fun.
very important topic. I guess any last minute thoughts, comments, bits of advice before we wrap up?
I guess I have something to add if that's okay.
Yeah.
I would add that having like a history, and it depends, right? But having some kind of history, if it's a tree thing, well, how long has this problem been going on? Because if you contact me in November and say the leaves are turning brown and falling, I'm like, yeah, it's autumn. But if that's not normal,
Yeah.
for that tree, having a history is kind of good to have. Or if it's my grass has been dying for 3 years. Yes, we're in a drought, but give me a little bit more information than that. When's the last time you had a soil test? When's the last time you fertilized? Are we spraying for pests? Do we possibly have mealybug?
Yeah.
So just some kind of history of here's what I've been doing and it's not working, or if you haven't been doing anything, that's also helpful to say, this just started 3 months ago, and I don't know where to start with that. That's helpful too. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
And
points.
I was gonna say, and that's why I always recommend people when you're doing any sort of management practices, fire, herbicide treatments, mechanical treatments, is just documenting what you do, because sometimes it's just a byproduct of something that you did that you were not aware of, especially with like herbicide. I feel like that would be one that you could potentially have a lot of, I hate to say issues with, but if you decided to spray on a slightly windy day, you may get some like drift, accidental drift or whatever. But anyway, so yeah,
Don't call us if you accidentally drift.
Yeah. But yeah, having some of that other just additional information is just sort of doing regular property checks, monitoring if stuff looks weird, continues to look weird, writing it down so you can have a document. Because there's a lot of things, I don't know about y'all, sometimes I can barely, people ask me, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? And I'm like, did I eat breakfast this morning? I don't remember.
Don't know.
I don't remember. But all right, everyone. Well, Megan, thank you for joining us. Hope y'all have a great Tuesday. We will not see you next week, but Carly and I on the back end will be working away to start our I guess, Carly, I guess you kind of gave a little bit of a brief overview of what we're gonna do, but I guess give the folks a little bit more detail before we sign off here.
Yeah. So I made it sound really scary in the beginning to make you watch till the end. So if you stayed this long, fantastic. No, I'm just kidding. But we are going to change to a quarterly format. And Megan, I'm stealing your plant party idea. So not idea, your kind of how you format it. I liked it's like in the middle of the day, it's recorded. You can get on live and win some free gift cards. So hopefully we can get some sponsors for that. And then it'll be recorded as well, so you can watch later. But a little bit more probably more than one topic, short topics, all kind of smushed together that are cohesive. And hopefully it's a little bit helpful, and I didn't plan like a spiel for that. So
I did put you on the spot to
no, well, I sat here and thought about it the entire time that we were talking, and then didn't actually like
But yeah.
think about what to say. But
I was
But
gonna
yeah,
say,
so-
'cause I think we planned for the first one to, did we pick a day? Or not a day necessarily, but
I think we said November 12th.
okay. That
That-
sounds about right.
That
Something.
sounds right to me. But yes, so I'm excited for that. And yes, November 12th. I'm excited for that, and hopefully that is helpful for everybody else, so you don't have to try to make us live. I mean, these are recorded too, but you don't really get to ask questions and see multiple topics all at one time. I think it'd just be a little bit more helpful that way. But anyhow, thank you, Megan, for joining us today.
So, yep.
Definitely.
You'll see y'all down the road at some point. Yeah, check out the Facebook page to see when we get, sort of all that stuff put together. But hope you all have a fantastic Tuesday, and
You
see y'all
too.
later. Bye.